9/11 Media Studios presents The Layover with LAAPOA. I'm your host, Marshall McLean. Today we are joined on The Layover by Simi Valley Police Chief Charles Steve Shorts. Steve began his law enforcement career with the Los Angeles City Park Rangers, where he served for more than 12 and a half years and rose to the rank of interim chief park ranger. In 2001, he lateraled to the Simi Valley Police Department, rising through the ranks from officer to chief. During his tenure with the department, he worked a variety of assignments and served in numerous capacities to include field training officer, property crimes detective, supervisor for the homeless liaison officers and school resource officer units, commander, assistant police chief, and much more. He promoted to the rank of chief on January 30th, 2023. Steve has an associate's degree in administration of justice from Santa Monica College. He received his bachelor's degree in occupational studies and his master's degree in emergency service administration from Cal State Long Beach. Steve and his wife, Kristen, live in Ventura County with their son and 2 daughters. Welcome to The Layover with LAAPOA. I'm your host, Marshall McLean, and today we have the infamous Chief Charles Shorts. How are you, Chief?
Good to see you.
Likewise, good to be seen. So let's get right into it. Where were you born?
So I was born in Harbor City in LA County, Harbor City, Kaiser.
Okay. All right. Tell us about your parents.
So my parents both were from the greater LA County area. My mom graduated from San Pedro High. My dad grew up in LA and went to Fremont High School, graduated there.
Okay. What were their jobs?
So my mom worked for the County of LA. She was a pediatric nurse practitioner. Mm-hmm. And my dad, interesting enough, worked for LA County Security, which ultimately became LA County Police as it went through its metamorphosis over the years.
Okay. Yeah, LA County Police is now, the sheriffs took that over, right?
Right.
County.
Right.
Okay. What was your first job?
So my first job, interesting enough, was at Thrifty, scooping ice cream off of Sunset and Fairfax.
Oh, man. Thrifty ice cream. I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Go in there, scoop for, back then it was like a nickel or 15 cents.
Yeah, it was pretty low.
Okay. With the little square cube.
With the little cube, right?
Square cube,
right?
I remember that.
Trying to make sure it all fits on there.
Yep. I still remember licking too much and it falling on the ground. I remember that. All right. So how do you go from scooping Thrifty ice cream to being chief of police? I mean, what took you to saying I want to be a police officer or a peace officer?
So interesting enough, my dad being in specialized law enforcement always gave me a little bit of interest when I was going to school, but it wasn't what I was setting out to do. I thought that I was going to go into business. So after I graduated from North Hollywood High, I went to Santa Monica College, and I was working on my lower division studies, and something sparked me to take some administration of justice classes, and that kind of made me evolve into more looking towards police work as an occupation.
Okay, what about any movies or TV shows, any like that helped shape you? Like, so let's see, back then it would have been, One Adam 12, Chips,
so, right? And I remember
Hill Street Blues.
I remember all those, Adam 12, SWAT,
the Rookies.
Yeah, Mod Squad, all those. I don't know that they necessarily fully, had a catalyst into me making the decision, but certainly I do remember them, and I enjoyed them as as something to do, something fun to do.
Okay. So tell us about how what steps did you take to become a park ranger for LA City?
So the park rangers it's an interesting story, and I think we all have some interesting stories, including yourself, as to how we started there. But after almost finishing up my AA degree, excuse me, I made a decision that I was going to put myself through the police academy. So I self-sponsored myself through Rio Hondo Police Academy, came out of the academy, and the LA City Park Rangers was just one of the first opportunities that I had to get on a criminal justice agency.
Okay.
So I entered or started working at the Park Rangers actually as a civilian, as a park patrol officer.
Okay. I'm familiar with that. I did that job. And if you're just joining us, you're here on the Layover with LAAPOA, and we're interviewing Chief Charles Shorts of the Simi Valley Police Department. So you went from being a civilian or part-time park ranger or park patrol officer all the way to being the chief park ranger. How long did that take? What was the time frame on that?
So a lot of things happened in that time period. While I was a civilian park patrol officer, the park rangers became a certified state law enforcement agency.
Okay.
And started hiring sworn or peace officer park rangers. So about a year and a half, a little less than 2 years later, I wound up promoting to a sworn park ranger.
Okay. How long were you employed with the Parks and Rec as a park ranger?
So I wound up being a park ranger for a total of right about 10 and a half years.
Okay. So during that time, could you tell us a little bit more about, excuse me, the job that the park rangers do? I know they're also trained firefighters as well.
Correct. So when I was working for the park rangers, we were considered generalists.
Okay.
We have peace officer authority, so we were doing law enforcement. We were doing wildland firefighting, search and rescue, and we were doing resource management education programs. So, and emergency maintenance. So it's kind of a jack of all trades.
Interesting. Are there any other, as far as you're aware, any other park rangers like that to that degree of specialties in the state or even in LA County or Ventura County?
Well, I know that California State Parks has some broad range where they do, California State Park Rangers, where they do a broad variety of assignments. And I think they do also some wildland firefighting. But in the local area, I would say the Conservancy and the LA City Park Rangers on the local level probably have the broadest range of duties.
So Santa Monica Conservancy, LA City Park Rangers, and then the state peace officer park rangers.
Yes.
Now, out of those, what's your take on the fact that only LA City park rangers are not armed?
So my my thought on it, the issue regarding whether LA City park rangers should be armed has been going on for years. While I was there, I've been gone 22 years, and as I understand it, I don't know all the current dynamics, but it's still one of the issues they're trying to work through. My take on it is, if they're law enforcement officers and they're out there and they're doing safety, law enforcement, security services, if you would, that they need to have the proper equipment to do the job.
Proper equipment being a firearm.
Absolutely. They should be able to defend themselves and defend the public.
Okay. Thank you for that. So let's talk about your transition from being a peace officer park ranger to being a police officer. You said you've been gone for 22 years from Parks and Rec,
Yes.
or Rec and Parks. So during that 22 years, have all of them been with the Simi Valley Police Department?
They have been. Obviously, going back to the Rangers, I started as a Ranger, and I promoted a few times there to Senior Park Ranger 1, Senior Park Ranger 2, which was the Deputy Chief Park Ranger at that time. And it's interesting in law enforcement how timing works. I made a decision that I was going to transition to municipal law enforcement and started testing for Simi Valley Police Department and got accepted. And the Chief Park Ranger at the time was on medical leave. And he was about to come back to work. His name was Hector Hernandez, very good man. He was supposed to come back to work, and when he transitioned back to work on the same day, I was going to transition over to Simi Valley Police Department. Well, the night before he was going to return back to work from leave, he passed away.
Wow.
And so when that happened, there was a lot of discussions, and I made the decision that I was going to go ahead and stay with the park ranger and maybe try to become the chief park ranger for the organization. Through the normal city processes, I became the interim chief park ranger.
Okay.
But I didn't let go of Simi Valley Police Department. I had gone through the process. So at that same time, I became a reserve police officer at Simi Valley Police Department. So I was working as the interim chief park ranger of LA and as a reserve police officer for Simi Valley. And that gave me some time to focus and really figure out what I wanted. And what I found was I loved everything about Simi Valley, everything about it. The organization, the residents, the community, and it was really running through my veins. And so after 6 months, I decided to transition from the LA City Park Rangers to Simi Valley Police Department.
And that's not a simple feat in of itself, from being the top dog with the park rangers to starting all over as a patrol officer at a new agency after you establish yourself. Tell me about that.
So that's an interesting transition, right? Because one day you're the head person, you're on top of the agency, you're the chief of your organization, and then within 2 to 3 weeks with some in-service training, you're back out on the street as a police officer, as a trainee. And everybody in your organization that you're going to knows you held that high level position at another organization. So I think it's very important to be grounded and focused and absorb yourself in the organization and be organic with people. And I never had any problems with the transition at all, and not a regret ever.
And I gotta think that gives you some credibility and respect from the troops, seeing that you started, worked your way up from the mailroom, so to speak, rather than just saying, hey, I'm chief over there, I'm gonna become chief over here.
Right.
Which is not uncommon through LA County, Ventura County, where you have, what would you say before the life expectancy of a chief's about
1 to 3 years now. It's pretty short.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's part of it. I think, for me, I don't believe that I would be the chief of Simi PD if I hadn't worked at the Park Rangers. Okay. I got some valuable tools in working in both open space and urban parks. One thing that you learn as an LA City Park Ranger, and I know you can attest to, you learn how to use your mouth and talk to people yep. and de-escalate and try to get voluntary compliance. I would say some of the personnel I work with over there mastered that art.
Appreciate that. Now I do have a question in terms of that transition. Did you go over thinking, I want to be the chief of this organization?
So I actually didn't. One of there were several things that really made me want to transition to municipal police work. Some of those things are, I wanted a broader range of police experiences that I can get than I could get at the time at the Park Rangers. Okay. So I really wanted to just go out and do some different assignments. And so throughout my career, I was a patrol officer, field training officer, background investigation detective. I worked in our special problems section, which is gang enforcement, street enforcement. Okay. I was a property crimes detective, and after my third year there, I became an instructor at the Ventura County Sheriff's Academy. In our county, small county, all the agencies have staff working at our regional academy. Okay. And so I really just got to move around and explore, and which really, really helped me progress in my career because I became multidisciplinary.
Okay. No, that's outstanding. So you're the top cop in the organization. now that you're in a position to change things, what either in your local organization or on a statewide level, what's one policy, practice, or even a law that you would like to either implement or change?
Well, that was easy for me. I think we really, really need to look at what we did with AB109 and realignment.
Yes, talk about that, please. What is AB109?
Well, I mean, put it in its simplest fashion. A lot of the offenses that used to be felonies are now misdemeanors. Jail time has been reduced. There's a lot more supervised release. And big picture, it's a revolving door for people that are committing criminal offenses and basically victimizing the public.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can speak to some of our experiences where we've arrested the same individual 2 or 3 times in less than a 48-hour period.
Absolutely. Those kinds of issues. And, I mean, one of the big challenges for me is Simi Valley has always been we're about 80% residential. We don't have a core urban area. Safety, community safety, security, people feeling, like they can go out at night and not have have the fear of being a crime victim is a big deal. And so it makes it a little difficult when the officers are out there doing their best and then they're arresting the same offenders over and over again. My job is to keep the community in the state that people, the reason why they live there, why they move there, to raise their families in that type of environment, if you would.
Okay. Yeah, and being that you're in Ventura County rather than LA County, I know something recently that occurred in the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles was going back to no bail. Do you have that same situation?
We do not. I actually read that recently and was reading some articles on it, and I found that interesting, but that is not the policy within Ventura County.
Okay. So those of you who are listening, part of that issue, like we mentioned about the revolving door, someone will be arrested, they don't have to post bail, they're released back into society to basically continue on their practices rather than them being in custody and have to post bail or wait until an arraignment.
Correct.
So LA County has that back in place. We were able to stay it off for a while, but it recently is back into a practice again. So one of the other big topics, I know it's not one of the questions that we talked about before, but in terms of sex trafficking.
Yes.
There's a bill that got a lot of pushback recently, SB 14, dealing with making sex trafficking a major felony, a serious crime. And in the Senate bill, public safety blocked that. And now there's been petitions and everything to push back on that. And this recent movie, Sound of Freedom, has come out basically exposing or shining a light on the fact that California, unfortunately, has a distinction of leading the country in child and sex trafficking.
Right.
So what was your take on that?
Well, obviously, I was concerned. Anytime I see a bill like that go through, it's super concerning. I'm always looking out, and I'm concerned about obstacles that prevent police officers from keeping the community safe. And so, part of my job is to get out there and do legislative advocacy, make sure that my elected officials on the state and federal level know what my concerns are, and believe me, in my area they do. If I see something that I believe that's going to be an obstacle to keeping the community safe, everyone's community safe, I'm going to let them know what my stance is on it. You're speaking about human trafficking, and I'm going to add something to that. Internet crimes against children are through the roof, and the issues in these areas is we as public safety agencies have to do a better job with educating the public. And I've told my community I need to make sure that you have some awareness that these issues exist. Simi Valley's low crime, but we're moving in our crime reporting methods, obviously based on the FBI, but the universal crime report doesn't necessarily capture some of these things that are going on in your jurisdiction. And so I'm committed to resources to work on those issues, and I have folks within my organization that are on task forces to do some interdiction investigation and enforcement in those areas.
I appreciate that, Chief. So let's unpack that a little bit more, just because let's the elephant in the room, so to speak, when it comes to law enforcement for these, especially the past 18 months, 2 years, has been a lot to do with race.
Okay.
And a lot of reform efforts have been pushed to almost say that there hasn't been reform going on for years. And so you've been in law enforcement how many years now?
So sworn 33,
Okay.
and then 2 as a civilian, so 35 years.
So more than half of your life.
Absolutely.
Right? Your entire life you've been a black man.
Yes, absolutely.
And so more than half of your adult life you've been, or all of your adult life, but you've been a police officer, a peace officer of
Correct.
some sort. So what do you have to say about some of these laws in terms of their impact and the reason for the impact? And I'll just go down a quick list. For one, you have one bill that was successfully killed, which was going to prevent police officers from being able to search vehicles, even if they had permission of the driver. That was one of the bills. One bill that's still alive, that's still going through by Senator Bradford, that wants to make pretextual stops statewide. LAPD currently has that as a policy. I completely disagree with it. And just for those who don't understand this concept, is that you would not be able to stop a vehicle for a minor infraction,
Right.
such as, such as expired registration, any type of equipment violation on the vehicle. You would not be able to make a traffic stop or stop that vehicle for any reason.
Right.
That is currently what's being pushed. And the reason it's being pushed is on the basis of that it will cause more interaction with police officers and African Americans, and stating that that will cause to more deaths of African Americans.
Sure.
What's your take on that as a police chief?
So there's a lot to unpack there.
there,
That's a loaded question. First of all, I don't have an issue with common sense justice reforms. I myself, a kid, an Angelino, grew up and certainly have, even through family and friends, experiences with people that were justice involved, right? And so, and I do believe in rehabilitation and support rehabilitation and giving people second chances. However, they still have to be responsible first for the crimes that they've committed, right? But it would be foolish in my mind for a police chief to not support successful reentry.
Okay.
So I just want to put that there. On the other hand, you have to balance that with common sense, again, justice reforms, and they need to make sense. I always tell my folks that we need to do things correctly, above the board, within policy and within the law, right? And when you can do that, for one thing, you're being a professional, and you always can fall back on your professionalism, right? And you're normally going to have good results from doing it that way. Some of these laws that are being pushed through, basically to me, or being put up for votes through the Assembly or through the Senate, they invalidate the issues related to victims.
Right.
People are being victimized over and over and over again. I would say, as a patrol officer years ago, the hardest thing for me to do is to stand in someone's house that's been burglarized while they're gone. Your most private area, where people have been through your drawers, taking things that you've worked hard from, and the sense of being violated, it would, I don't want to be ridiculous, but I feel really, really bad for folks that happens. And then once we get into full-scale investigations, we find out that the person has committed similar crimes in our county, in our cities, and throughout LA, Riverside, and San Bernardino County. So decriminalizing everything and not holding people accountable is not resolving anything. Sure, I'm all for robust programs to get people re-entered, get them on track, reset them. And we should find out why people are captured in the river of being justice involved. I think that needs to be important to us. And what are we going to do to, instead of worrying about pulling them out of the river of being justice involved, what do we do to keep them from getting in there in the first place?
Okay.
And there's a host of social issues. Some of them are cultural. Right. Some of them you and I know very well that we have to deal with in order to make that happen. But that doesn't erase the need to hold people accountable and protect the community.
Do you have family members or friends that are not in law enforcement that say, hey, what's going on? Because even LeBron James made a claim that said that he feels like cops are hunting for him every time he walks out the door, that cops are hunting for him and he's fearful for his son. And you have a son and you have daughters, I have children as well. What do you say to them when they're saying comments like, we feel that unarmed black men are a target and they're being just murdered by the police on a regular basis?
Well, and I try to set things in context, right? And how I try to set it in context is, first of all, on this issue that we're discussing, do we have the whole story?
Okay.
Right? Because there's always with these, even the events that are shown on the news, and we know sensationalism sells in the media, right? I have to explain to my kids is I'm going to reserve judgment till I have the facts, and I evaluate the facts because I know there's always precipitating factors as to why engagements between officers and people that are being detained or offenders, why they result to going off track and the encounter, resulting in force or being mishandled or even handled correctly. So that's the first thing I do. And then I try to give people just a sense of reality. And, in my own community, I tell them about these instances that people run through. People sometimes don't realize that a patrol officer makes a traffic stop for a basic violation, collects the driver's information, goes back to the car, follows their normal practices of running them for wants and warrants, the car to see whether the registration is valid, whatever it is, and the information comes back. And I'm just giving an example that the suspect is wanted.
Okay.
And there's a warrant for us to take them in custody.
Okay.
Sometimes the officer goes back up to the car and has that engagement again with the driver and asks them, hey, this is the information that I found. I'm going to have to place you under arrest. Step out the car. Well, my community sometimes is surprised to figure out that sometimes the driver says, no, I'm not going to get out the car.
Right.
And if you make me get out the car, it's going to be an issue.
Got it.
So now we have a problem, right? Because the police officers got to do their job. And if a grown adult, male or female, does not on a stop that's clearly based on reasonable suspicion, there's probable cause to make an arrest. They've told the subject in the car they're going to get arrested, but they don't want to come out. So then you can potentially get in a force incident.
Right.
And there's nothing I can do to make force doesn't look nice.
Right.
So I'm not going to validate anybody that's inappropriately applying force, because force, we all know, needs to be necessary. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is the officer has to do their job and they have to put them in custody. So I think we just need to do a much better job in a pragmatic fashion of educating the public of the realities and the scenarios and understanding that every situation is not the same.
Okay. I appreciate that. And again, we're Layover with LAAPOA, and we're interviewing here the infamous Charles Shorty Chucky Shorts. I appreciate this. Has been a fun time so far. Let's get into a little more things here. Like, what would you say the biggest misconception about either you, your city, or even your department?
You know, one of the, and this is, you're not going to expect this answer.
Okay.
One of the big things that we've been dealing with law enforcement recently is the intersection of public health and public safety.
Okay.
Okay. And I sometimes talk to people, and they don't realize that that because of the mental health epidemic, because of the homeless epidemic, police officers in this state are working in that intersection.
Right.
So we in our county sometimes use the terminology social services oriented policing.
Okay. That's good.
And certainly during the social justice reform period, you know, we heard from some folks that thought that we didn't have the skills, the training, and the ability to deal with folks that were suffering from these issues, right? It's a public health crisis. I think they're a little surprised when I talk to them about how much I know, how much my officers know, how for years, including when I was back in the Rangers, we were partnering with public health, we were partnering with psychiatrists, and we were working on these issues, Marshall, when I was a Ranger in the 90s.
Right.
You remember that in the parks?
Absolutely.
So we as law enforcement and the public didn't know this. We saw this issue coming. And I would say, which includes myself, all of us in government, we didn't do the things we needed to do to intersect it properly. And now we have an issue on our hands. So they're surprised about that piece, and they're surprised that that I have people in the police department that specialize in those areas. I select officers that are neighborhood resource officers, which do homeless for us. I've got a vulnerable population detective, and I got school resource officers. They're hand selected. They have given care in their heart, right? Dealing with kids and dealing with people that have health issues. And we do some good work out there. And I think people are really, really surprised that we are committed to doing our part. It's not our problem to solve alone, but we're stakeholders in that issue.
Absolutely. That's outstanding. What guides you? What would you say is your North Star?
I guess the best way to say it is my North Star on everything that I deal with, that I put my hands on, at home with my children or at work, is to always be objective.
Okay. To
consider the alternative perspectives and to make my decision making on based on what's right, what's fair.
What accomplishment are you most proud of, either professionally, personally, or both?
My biggest accomplishment has got to be my family. Family's number one with me. I'm a family man. I believed in the man upstairs, and that's really, really the core of what everything I do. If it was something secondary, is, you know, I'm a guardian. I'm a police officer, and I want to keep people safe, and I want to help when I can.
That's great. What are your future plans or goals, professionally, personally?
So professionally, we'll start there. Well, let's start personally. Personally, obviously, is to be a good leader of my family, to keep a healthy relationship, which we have, to be engaged with my wife and kids, and to be a good provider. Professionally is, you know, I have a 5-year stint as a police chief. I'm down to 4.5 years, but to leave the place in a better place than I found it, to work on strategic planning, succession planning, and make sure that we grow with the community and we're always delivering quality service.
Okay, What do you consider a most important characteristics of a person? Not just a police officer, but just in general.
To me, everything is about character. Character first, right? It's whether you're talking to your friends or you're talking to your family, or if I'm talking about work, right? Ethics, honesty, integrity, treating people with dignity, doing the right things for the right reasons. Those are the things that are important to me.
What would you like your legacy to be?
In terms of home, that I was a good dad. I was a provider. That I did everything I can do to give everybody around me a hand up and make them successful, and that I'm raising kids that are productive in society. At work, my legacy that I was a listener, that I had a work with mentality, and that I was able to get everybody going in the same direction.
I like that. What makes you happiest in life?
Nothing makes me happier than being with my family. My family is extremely important to me, and that's my core.
Do you have any pets?
No, I don't have any pets.
Why not?
I think it's just too busy around my household to have a pet, but I certainly have my kids asking for one, so at some point in time I'm going to get overruled.
Okay. What's your biggest fashion faux pas? And don't say socks with sandals.
I was going to say that. It's like when you go to the refrigerator in the morning and my wife says, "Can you make some coffee?" We're out of creamer. So when you put on your socks with your Birkenstocks and your family's like, "No one does that." Well, I do. And so the big brother with the shaved head going into the grocery store early in the morning with the Birkenstocks and socks. That's me if I need something to get breakfast going.
Got it. I admit I've done that before, and I get the knock too. So, all right. What's your favorite place?
Any place where there's a beach. The Caribbean. These are places I've been. Jamaica, the Bahamas, Hawaii, Cabo. Anything with the
tropical beach.
Tropical,
got it.
yeah.
I'm with you there. What is your favorite sports team?
Well, like I said, I was born and raised in LA. So the Rams, obviously the Lakers, both UCLA and USC, depending on the sport. And I grew up being able to watch Kenny King and Marcus Allen in the same backfield on the Raiders. So sorry, I still got love for the Raiders.
Well, hey, you can go to Nevada.
Yes, yes, you can.
What about baseball?
Oh, I love the Dodgers.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not glossing over them at all.
Got it. All right, perfect. So let's get into the lightning round here. What's your favorite word?
So I can think of a few, but one of the ones that I'll use one from work. I say huddle. And when I'm talking to my command staff, my assistant chiefs, my admin assistant, I was like, let's huddle up in the conference room. And it really just means let's put ourselves together, because all of us on certain items can make a better decision together than me by myself. And their ideas matter to me, and I want to hear them.
Do you say ready, break, and clap afterwards?
We don't do that.
All right.
But yeah, I'll call it huddles, and and we'll figure some things out.
What's your least favorite word?
So it's a phrase, actually.
Okay.
And I'm just going to make this work related. I can think about personally, but let's make it work related. What I don't like, and Certainly my guys and gals would tell you that, like if I give them a direction to do something and they say, well, I don't know what am I going to do about it, is the response. I like to tell folks in my building, don't tell people when people contact the police, it's their worst day. Mm-hmm. A lot of people never even had contact police officers ever. So instead of telling people what you can't do, tell them what you can do. Mm. And that's why I hate that phrase.
I like that.
I don't know what I can do about it. I expect you to figure it out.
Understood. What turns you on?
What turns me on is people that are happy, that are living, that are enjoying their lives.
Mm. What turns you off?
People that are pompous, have status identity, turns me off. Okay. I myself, I don't feel like I'm any bigger than my wife at home and at work. When I walk down the hall, people obviously are respectful because I'm the chief, but they feel like I'm a person that they can come and they can, using slang, chop it up with me, right. Have discussions with me. That's important to me. I want people to be able to approach me and tell me if they have a concern.
I like that. What sound or noise do you love?
I love the sound of the ocean.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Scraping and scratching like a chalkboard.
That's good. What profession, other than the one you have today, what would you like to attempt?
So I don't have any skills in this area, but boy, would it be cool to be a musician or R&B singer or performer.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that. All right. What profession would you never like to participate in?
Probably anything that's super deep underwater.
Okay.
It doesn't mean I can't swim to save myself and that I can't float. You'll get that humor. But I would not want to be in the depths of the ocean.
See, that's cool to me. I think that's a safe place. It's peaceful. Scuba diving, I love it. All right, and the final. If heaven exists, which I believe it does, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You know what? If God just said welcome, that's all I need.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It's been fun.
Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.